or not, or you can walk wherever you want. You still want to be able to do that and have the freedom to do it if you want to. So, anyway, so the political arena, there's been tons of people tweeting all day in support of gay rights, including Hillary Clinton and hundreds of other people who are well-known, high-profile individuals in support of gay rights, and saying how it's time. And I couldn't, of course, agree more. But just as many as there were people saying that they wanted to have gay marriage and that it should be ruled the law, there's just many people who are on the other side of the fence, going on and on about how horrible the idea is. And they were saying things like, when the wicked rules, the people groan. They were saying same-sex couples don't have the right to conceive children to get together. They're like siblings, not infertile couples. So therefore, it's not the same, says John Howard. And then marriage is from God. It's not something that can be redefined by 5 unelected judges. As SCOTUS this morning, praying for marriage, stand for marriage, traditional marriage. This world needs Jesus. I mean, bullshit like this. And then people are losing their jobs because of their beliefs on traditional marriage. And marriage existed before our Constitution, before America was established by God. And if you notice anything in most of these arguments, and all of these arguments, really, it's always about religion. And I always have to try my hardest to somehow, have people who are on the opposite side of the fence give me another argument. For example, Moot, I'm trying to hire some writers from Moot for my magazine because I'm revitalizing it. And I got a couple of people interested or whatever. Is that my chair shaking, or is there an earthquake happening right now? Hold on. I think there's a small tremor. Anyway, sorry. I had this one guy who I said I was interested in having, of course, mostly progressive writers, liberal progressive writers in the magazine. But I thought it might be interesting to have one person show an alternative viewpoint, which would be the contrasting viewpoint of the liberal viewpoint on different topics. And so this one guy, or a few people, actually a few conservatives emailed me and said they'd love to do that, and they think it's a great idea to have that. And so one guy, I said, he said, I don't really have any samples, but I can write something for you. Just give me a topic. So I said, fine, write on gay marriage. He said, okay. So he wrote on gay marriage. Next day he sends me an article, and the article, the entire thing was about the Bible says this, the Bible says that. This is what marriage is supposed to be. Adam and Eve, and not Adam and Steve. I mean, just horribly stupid wrote arguments that I've heard a bazillion times that have nothing to do with the political arena and nothing to do with the civil rights portion of gay marriage. They all had to do with religion. And so it's always impossible for them, it seems, to argue that their side of things without including religion. And so I wrote back to him and I said, I understand that it's difficult for people such as yourself who are conservative and Christian, et cetera, or evangelical, to have a debate about gay marriage without bringing religion into the fold. I said, I want you to rewrite this, but I want you to write it so that you discuss it from a non-religious viewpoint and only from a civil rights issue. So having the same civil rights, whether it's called marriage, it's still called marriage, but I mean, it doesn't have to be sanctioned by a church or anything else. It's just the same civil liberty, right? And so I said, write it from that perspective without the religious portion of your article, and then I'll look it over. He never wrote back. And the reason he never wrote back is because why? Well, they simply cannot divorce themselves from the religion in their thought process. And I understand someone who's highly religious probably can't. But that is where the problem comes in, where we have people who are incapable of being rational thinkers and are simply just, rehashing and regurgitating bullshit they've been taught or whatever by their pastors, or they've been reinforced by people that they're around all the time that think exactly the same way they do, and so forth. And, that's one reason I think it's important for people to expose themselves to different ways of thinking and not just the way, to be mired in their own way of thinking. And it's important to always challenge your beliefs. And if you come back to the same belief, fine, that's respectful. But someone who never considers an alternative viewpoint is just a sheep, essentially. And these people who are tweeting and about how gay marriage is evil and against religion and against God or whatever they're saying are no different. It is essentially the same arguments over and over again. And this is the reason that gay people are winning the rights to have gay marriage and have already in most instances and in so many states, because the Constitution has and calls for what? Separation of church and state. I mean, this is such a very simple idea, one that's very important, one that we had this country founded upon essentially, a tenet of our belief system as a country, as a nation, that stated essentially that we do not have the state or legislation based upon religious belief systems or religion at all. Religion is protected in terms of how you want to live your life. You want to be religious, the freedom to practice your religion. The freedom to practice your religion in your own home, in your own way, and around yourself, whatever, is one thing, and that's fine and protected. But what is not protected is the right for you to hurl your religious beliefs upon others, to in some fashion, use your religion as a weapon. And it's not acceptable or constitutional for people who are religious this way to somehow usurp the governmental process by injecting their religious beliefs into the situation. And instead of doing that, they should only focus on what is logical, what is correct from a legal perspective and not from a religious one. And this is where things have gone wrong, in my opinion, in this country, not just with this issue, but with so many, including abortion and race and so many other things. And as I've said before, of course, they use the same type of arguments against interracial marriage before Loving versus Virginia. And they use the same type of arguments in this country against so many different issues because they're afraid. And this is not a Christian nation. It's not a Christian nation. It is a nation of laws. It is a nation that allows you to be Christian, but it is not a nation that allows you to hijack, the fucking Constitution, because it is not that way, and it never will be. And there's a reason for that. That's what we were fucking escaping to begin with, was Americans, was religious persecution, and the freedom from religion, the freedom to not have to practice a particular religion, like the Church of England required, Catholics were required to follow the Pope, and the people who were in England were required to follow the King as their leader and God and so forth. And so they wanted to be able to choose their own religious belief system and follow it in their own peace. And this is where things have gone wrong, in my opinion, in this country. So when it comes to gay marriage, we keep having the same arguments over and over and over again, and without moving forward at all, because it is not going to change. Ultimately, we're going to continue to go around in circles. And the bottom line is what? Is that gay people have the right to marry one another if they so choose, because it is a part of the pursuit of happiness. It's a part of their pursuit of happiness. And it is a part of their constitutional right, because you have the right to pursue your happiness. You have the right to have equal treatment under the law. It is not equal treatment under the law if you have a certain class of people, like gay people, for example, GLBT, whatever people, whom are not allowed to do the exact same thing that another class of people are allowed to do in the exact same way. People always say, well, gay people can marry somebody in the opposite sex if they want. Sure, but can they marry someone they're in love with, which is what marriage is based on these days? No, they can't. So this is the problem. And hopefully we're going to see in June some movement on this and actually find that we're going to have a law. The law of the land in June hopefully will be that all states must recognize gay marriage. Now, the problem in Texas is that the Texas House Committee passed a bill opposing same-sex marriage. Now, why is that an issue when we know the Supreme Court is deciding on it right now? This was just 4 or 5 days ago. Why is that an issue? It's an issue because I'm sorry, I'm laughing because in Texas, you have to understand the Texas mentality has always been one of rebel and maverick, and that's great in some ways, of course, if you're fighting for the right cause, the right thing, and not bigotry or hatred. But in Texas, they're going to do every single thing they can. Texas is a highly conservative state, which is Republican-led, which has a massive Republican majority, and they're conservative here. And so, therefore, they're going to do everything they can in their power to, even if it means twisting the law, whatever, to make sure that if the Supreme Court does indeed pass a law stating that all states must recognize gay marriage, that somehow they want to exempt Texas from having to abide by the same rules, because Texas are rebels out here. We do what we fucking want, essentially. That's how they think. And the thing about that is of course, that's not going to stand ultimately. It's just going to essentially delay gay marriage in Texas, which is what they want. So if, for example, the Supreme Court rules that gay marriage is going to be the law of the land everywhere in the United States of America, every state must recognize it, they're going to pass a law which states essentially that no money can be used, or no Texas state funds can be utilized to what's the word I'm looking for? Have gay marriages essentially in the state of Texas, so that the Secretary of State will not recognize gay marriages because the money utilized to marry them by licensing, fees or whatever, cannot be used for that. Therefore, they cannot recognize it. Even if it's the law of the nation, the federal government says it, they're saying that they don't have to follow that law, which is fucking bullshit, because the Constitution states that states have to follow the federal laws. If it's been dictated by the Supreme Court, et cetera, all those sorts of things, it's been legislated, all of those things have happened, it has to follow them whether they want to or not. I mean, if they didn't have to do that, states would just do what the fuck they wanted all the time, and it wouldn't matter what the federal government said. So it's in the fucking Constitution. They don't read the Constitution, they just read the Texas one, I guess. But they also want to pass, as part of this bill, not only that portion, they also want to, there are other bills being presented as well that say that anytime a clerk marries a gay couple or issues a license to a gay couple, that their salary is waived for the year. Therefore, that person would lose their entire salary just because they followed the instruction of the national government, of the federal government. There's another one that says they want to amend the same-sex marriage so that it's not allowed regardless of the federal government, and actually pass an additional bill that says regardless of what they say, we do what we want. And then the Secretary of State would have to issue all licenses, and no money, as I said, would be able to be used for that purpose. So we have all of this fucking bullshit going on here and in other states where they're trying so hard to not allow gay people to get married. Now, I talk about, these people on that side of the aisle and their contempt for gay people and their hatred for us. And of course, if you ask them, they're going to say, "Oh, I don't hate gay people. I just don't believe in what they do," or "I hate the sin, not the sinner," or whatever the fucking saying is that Christians often say. But they'll say they don't hate gay people, but they do. Their actions say otherwise. It is the action that matters, not what you say, in my opinion. What you say is important, of course, but what you do is even more important than that, because words are meaningless without action. So, in order for them to try to continue to, berate us and to make us, second-class citizens or relegate us to that status in this country, they continually do what they can, and that is hatred. To continue to try to curtail my rights or anyone else's rights simply because of how you believe, and your belief is not based on anything but belief. It's not necessarily based on fact. It's just based on what you believe, what you think. It's not based on the Constitution, as I've mentioned already. It's based simply upon their personal preferences, based only upon what they particularly believe in. And as long as someone else's rights don't infringe upon someone else's, there's no reason for them not to exist. there's no reason for gay people not to be able to get married just because some people don't like it. Just like there's no reason for heterosexual people not to be able to get married just because some people don't like it. I mean, it just depends on who you're talking to, of course, but I don't know.